reports once again on Liberty TV at our Kaduna studios. Welcome to our viewers across Nigeria and across West Africa, and to our many friends worldwide streaming on the World Wide Web on YouTube and Facebook. As usual, we follow trending and most popular stories from around the globe from the past week. Our guest this week is once again Professor Khalifa Dikwa. Welcome, Prof.
Thank you. Welcome. Thanks a lot.
Okay, what's happening this week? The news this week. Well, one little item of news I came across this morning was yesterday was the 53rd anniversary of the first Nigerian coup. That was the coup of Nziogu, if my memory, well, no, I wasn't there, which was quickly foiled by the Agui coup. But that took place 53 years ago yesterday, and in fact it was the first coup that was broadcast over the radio by the perpetrators. And where was it played? Where was it played out on the radio? Here in Kaduna, by the National Radio in Kaduna. Okay, let's move on to some news. Yesterday, Theresa May, the British Prime Minister, badly lost the vote for the Brexit agreement with the European Union. In fact, she lost by 230 votes to 426 votes, which is the biggest disaster apparently in British political history. Prof, have you any comments on Brexit?
Yes, it has never happened, and that's the ambiguous adventure that the British democracy has now run into. They have voted it down, and they do not have an alternative to it. And European Commission, European Union is saying we will only help Britain to exit. They are no longer ready to negotiate anything. It means Britain has a problem that if it exits, it means there is a hard border, the backstop thing about Ireland,
Northern Ireland,
Northern Ireland that would like to go with the European Commission, and that if Britain wants to return, Britain may lose a lot of say, as in the past, a lot of say, perhaps with the conditions that Britain drops its pound sterling and say you go with our euro. These are things that are likely to come. And thirdly...
But oddly enough, the pound has rallied since the announcement.
Yes. And funny enough, the pound rose yesterday.
Yeah, as I was saying, yeah, rallied, yeah.
Very funny. And that it is really a cul-de-sac for Western democracy itself. And that for this, even her own party standing against her, and a party that does not have an alternative for now for Theresa May within the Republican Party, except the opposition, which Jeremy Corbyn, yes. So it means it is just a vicious cycle. The same thing with Brexit, with France now, with the yellow vest happening. And then America's isolation is protectionism that shot itself in the foot, taking, surprising the real allies and so on, even if after Trump, the allies may never go along with America in the, like before.
I think with talking about going back to Brexit, I don't think the British people really realise what a mess it could happen. They
were not enlightened.
Yeah, they weren't enlightened in the first place.
They weren't enlightened. They took them for granted. They took them for granted that the common British man knows the advantage or the lack of it.
As somebody said this morning on BBC, I was watching, somebody said a lot of the majority of the voters, all they want to do is put a finger up at the EU, because they always resented the European Union.
They said for
now, having put a finger up at the EU, what are you going to do?
Nothing, because in the conditions and so on, you cannot exit EU and then get the benefits in terms of customs, information gathering, and the goods and the tariff and so on.
If you leave a club, you don't get the benefits of the club.
You cannot get the benefits. So the common man was not enlightened enough. They took it for granted. That just thought it was just about immigration, jobs, and so on. But now they have seen it. There is no alternative. They can't move. If they move to another country, they have certain things to feel.
And even if Corbyn is putting a no confidence vote in the government, even if he succeeds, they won't vote Corbyn
They won't vote unless they go for another referendum.
And another government will be facing the same problem.
Article 50 may be taken to the abattoir, to the butchery.
I think what eventually is going to happen, I think there's going to be another referendum in the end.
After,
a new government and a new referendum.
After enlightening the real people, and eventually British, it was just Theresa May who was bold enough to go around and even try to resource that Commonwealth individually and so on with dealing with America. And today's America is no longer reliable. It's just like the Tony Blair's British following as a Labour Party following the Republican George Bush to invade Iraq and so on. The Western democracy is confused. And then because of the rise of populism, people are getting more enlightened through social media and so on.
This rise in populism is causing a lot of
they were
confusion.
all forced by joblessness and poverty, and then taxes, and then taxing the poor much more money than the.
But where did this come from? It came from the financial crisis of 2008.
Increasing
when the bankers
price.
And the politicians were making money hand over fist.
Exactly. Increasing fuel price, then subsequently it goes with the inflation. And that touches them, eventually bringing the people together now to say, hey, these people, they call them establishment. These few people, we have to get rid of them. They are now everybody in Britain.
To me, it's very similar to the problem we have in Africa, in Nigeria.
In Nigeria,
we're ruled by, there's a lot of corrupt politicians who have been in the past taking all the country's money.
Exactly, the money.
In the West, it's the bankers.
It's the bankers.
The financial institutions are doing the same thing.
Mega banks
no
and
difference.
So on. And you have this
creating all kind of financial wizardry and convincing people it's going to make things better when it doesn't.
Mega banks, Wall Street, and these checks and so on. Look at the scenario where in history again, America is shut down by a quota. Over 800 people, 800,000 people not being paid, and so on. It has never happened, and these are things that will eventually bring people now to sit down around a table and then discuss their thing across all colorations. Their main problem is the government, and the government is made up of the same people recycling, coming up, and so on.
The same
the same thing in France, the same thing in Britain, America, the same thing in Africa, and the same thing in Nigeria since independence, and so on. Apart from the First Republic and so on, all subsequent, both military and civilians, were just protecting themselves, behaving like secret organizations, secret societies.
Exactly.
And keeping anybody who is useful enough, who thinks along the interests of the people, is schemed out or not allowed even to go in.
Okay, I think we can we move along? Let's. We don't have much time on our show, as usual.
Brooks, the most annoying part of it is that decent people who would like to be in government and so on, elected and so on, they get defeated at the primary level, and those to be appointed, these people within the establishment will get the security to write nasty things in their dossier and so in order to disqualify them. This has been going on for long. And eventually people are going to come up and say, wait, DSS now bring out the files, and then we see why people who did well in the past cannot go into government, and eventually it will happen.
Let's move along to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. I believe we have a video from Al Jazeera, a report from Al Jazeera. Can we watch the report from Al Jazeera?
Well, Jordan Anderson is a country risk analyst for sub-Saharan Africa at the consultancy IHS Markit. He joins us now from London. What's your reading of these results? I mean, they certainly came as something of a surprise, didn't they?
Well, absolutely, yes. So as an election result coming, the key dynamic that this is going to change is this really rules out any possibility of having unified opposition protests post these elections coming out. For example, as we might have seen in response to a Shardari victory. Instead, what these results have done is they've divided the opposition down the middle between supporters of Felix Tshisekedi and supporters of Martin Fayulu on both sides. And this is going to prove a real difference to the opposition going forwards versus what we would have seen in a Shardari victory.
And does that then reduce the threat of violence?
It changes the dynamics of violence that we can expect to see. So like I say, we won't see unified protests in Kinshasa anymore, mass demonstrations of the opposition coming out, but really we're going to move more towards a situation where we see violence between supporters of the two candidacies, between supporters of Tshisekedi and Fayulu. And we'll see that across the country in the areas where they're stronger and areas where they're weaker. One of the things we have to be concerned about is whether we start to see any of that violence take on an ethnic dimension. So whether we start to see anti-Luba violence or violence against other ethnicities originating in the Kasai, and whether that draws reprisal violence in the Kasai itself. These are all new dynamics that move into the violence amongst the opposition now that we're going to see them be divided rather than unified.
And it was never looking likely to be a smooth transition, was it, this first democratic transition of power in the Democratic of Congo? Should the other key opposition figure, Martin Fayulu, should he accept this result?
Well, so this, as you point out, this is going to be the first peaceful transfer of power of the presidency within DRC's history. Martin Fayulu has already rejected this result, come out and he's called it an electoral coup and he's called it fraudulent and fabricated. Key to his ability to really keep up that contestation and to bring his supporters out onto the street to demonstrate is going to be the Catholic Bishops' Conference, the Senko. Whether or not they release their parallel voting data that they say they have and which is widely reported as favoring Fayulu is going to be key to him being able to make that argument. And it's not a done deal that the Catholic Church is going to release this parallel voter data it has. Back in 2011, it had comparable data, or it had its own data on the voting count, which it chose not to release at that time. So we could see them choosing again not to release that data this time around, and that would do a lot of damage to Fayulu's claim and ability to contest the results of this election.
How optimistic are you for Democratic Republic of Congo's future?
I am a Congo optimist. I believe in that. Like I say, the patterns of the violence are going to shift, and certainly there is going to need to be a rapprochement to have a real peaceful transfer of power taking place. Simply the fact that this result has been announced doesn't mean that all the grandees within the ruling party and within the military were brought along and were on board with this decision. So really there's going to have to be a rapprochement and a reconciliation between Tshisekedi and those elites if we're going to see a peaceful Tshisekedi presidency coming in and remaining in place in Congo.
Oh, let's hope that optimism is warranted. Jordan Anderson, thanks very much for taking the time to join us from London.
Well, that's what's happening in the Republic of the Congo. Prof, I'm sure you have an opinion on this.
This time around, what we used to call Maradona.
Maradona.
Yes, Kabila really outplayed them, outsmarted them, because Fayulu was expected to win. And in Democratic Republic of Congo, the Catholic Church had a say. Okay. And this time around, even France was surprised that Fayulu did not win. And in a hidden way, there was...
Let me get it right. Fayulu was the popular candidate.
The popular candidate. Yeah. The popular candidate, and then the candidate of Kabila that expected to be protected, that is the protege of Kabila, obviously did not make it, and so on. Tshisekedi was the least expected to win.
Who was the Kabila candidate? What was the name of the Kabila candidate?
I cannot remember. Okay. But then he defeated France. Yeah. France did not expect Tshisekedi to win, and Catholic Church the same thing. And even, I will say, even Russian hackers were surprised that Tshisekedi made it. And this is
Tshisekedi is not being supported by Kabila?
Hidden.
Hidden?
Yes. Okay. The coveted candidate of Kabila. That's why as soon as he was declared winner, he commended Kabila for maintaining peace and order and so on. So this is something that will go a long way in Congo history. Somehow, if the people can now say enough of this, let us just come together and say enough. Since now the Catholic Church, instead of sticking to its basic thing, has been deciding politics that has not been favoring us. It has been playing along with France, that has kept us at war with the mineral resources and so on being stolen and so on. Let us have enough of it, because this is the first time a transition between a civil government and since independence 1960.
Yeah, first time.
And this is the first time
they've gone to the polls.
If they play along, if they allow other forces outside the country to create problems for them, they are in for another problem, because they already are at war with the insurgency and so on. This is a rich country with over 20 or 30 trillion dollar mineral resources underneath.
Cobalt is one of the key minerals which are in phones and computers. Most of it comes from
King
DRC.
Leopold of Belgium, that used to even say, go and get this number of this quantity of precious stone. If you don't come with it, they will cut the hands and so on in the past and so on. Congo was the gold mine of Belgium in the past, and this is it is high time for them to now say enough of war. Let us now come together.
But Prof, going back to the vote.
Yes.
Is there no? There must be a contest.
There must be a contest,
it's
but
being
then
contested in court.
What if there is something that looks like in the past, foreign observers eventually will say the problems were not serious enough as to ask for another elections or
but already some of the external people monitoring the election have done a calculation that's
can't you see that the media is not hammering too much on this, and you know that a part of Congo that is infected by Ebola did not take part.
That was an issue.
These are all things, all these things that will eventually, only days will come and then perhaps say, what next? Is it for Kabila's now coveted candidate Tshisekedi to form a government of national unity to bring everybody together and then tell France that this is the choice of the people of Congo? Please leave us alone this time around and face your yellow vest.
But will the people of the Congo, will the majority of the people of Congo go along with these machinations?
Eventually, when you get the main ones, the troublemakers and so on, make them part of the government and so on. That is why I said government of national unity.
But this is the way that Kabila wants to continue his influence.
By proxy.
Yeah, by proxy. But
it doesn't work.
It usually doesn't work.
It doesn't work. President Obasanjo did. He brought in a sickly fellow to die off quickly so that Jonathan will just come. This is somebody who knew next to nothing in terms of governance and so on, despite the fact that he was deputy governor, and then vice president and so on. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Most of the time, you cannot have.
And they usually turn against the person who's.
Exactly. You can't play. You can't have two captains in your boat.
Exactly.
So look at the governors and their deputies and so on. Eventually, when they hand over to deputies, they become enemies and so on. As sworn enemies, it doesn't work. It is very difficult to work.
Well, this issue will be interesting how it pans out. We've even got to a third item today. Baga has been retaken. Is that the correct word we should use?
Yes. Baga.
And we were debating last time whether
Baga
it had even
our
been
local government, and then initially the army denied the fact that it was taken. It was the north, made up of 10 local governments, has been in trouble for long because the insurgents will just come in and go, not to occupy them physically.
Let's have a look at a report from Channels TV on Baga, please.
Following what is believed to be a technical defeat of Boko Haram insurgents from Baga town, many locals who have been seeking refuge in Maiduguri, the state capital, found courage to return to their ancestral homes after years of displacement. Baga, the headquarters of Kukawa local government area, is a fishing community and the headquarters of the multinational Joint Task Force. Now the town is gradually returning to its old self, but the peace appears to be short-lived as some of them still have to find their way back to the IDP camp in Maiduguri. NEMA's intervention at this camp is specifically tailored to meet the needs of these group of people recently displaced. The intention is to give them a little succor until they are ready to go back.
We must give them a human face, give them the dignity of human being, despite they are in the camp, make them feel like a human being, so that from there we take off from there. Why we are here is the first 1 week task force to take care of all the influx that are coming in now. Subsequently, it will be as they were being given before. Yes.
Borno state government officials who received the survivors affirm that the influx is overwhelming and that the intervention couldn't have come at a better time.
We have to appreciate the effort of NEMA for their quick intervention. This is what is expected of NEMA, and they have responded quickly, and people are very happy now. For those who are just coming in, you know, for the last 1 week, so many people are just trooping in.
New tents and temporary shelters are also being put together in conjunction with other humanitarian agencies. To these displaced persons, the shelter can only be temporary, as they hope to return to their ancestral homes with the assurance that their safety will be guaranteed.
Okay, that's
yes.
what's happening in Baga. Prof, you're
Yes,
the
Baga
expert on this
and-
part of Nigeria.
Yes, the military said to the citizens now to move out of Baga and leave them with the insurgents, and so they moved to Mongono. Still, most of them thought they were not safe. They had to move to Maiduguri for their own safety. The thing is, now it is a theater of war, and people should not expect the military to always. Propaganda is part of war, and that the setbacks from time to time, the people of this country and our neighbors should be able to now team up with the military in order to fight this insurgency that, if left alone, will eventually come down to the other cities and so on. In the past, their own bombings and so on reached even Nyanya in Abuja and so on. It is not enough for people to sit down in Abuja to talk about it without knowing the real thing. It is an international conspiracy. But now that those countries that initially created the insurgency for us have enough on their own plates, we don't expect them to have enough time now to embolden, to add more things into more problems into our own. And therefore, if, for instance, we say Britain, France, America, and so on, each of the three have their own problem. Unless we have cronies or people who do not want this war to end, the fat cats. The fat cats who would like to this thing to continue so that they make money, a lot of money, while people are suffering. We are not happy with the delay in arming, equipping, and so on the military with the sophisticated weapons. Give them more sophisticated weapons, and take care of their own welfare. Give the Air Force enough aircrafts and so on to finish this thing one and for us.
And the soldiers have been complaining vociferously.
Yes, and at the same time open the door for dialogue. Every war finishes around a table, even if it means outside the country. They can choose another country to go and have negotiation to end this madness once and for all. But like I said, there are people who do not want this thing to end, and I dare say that not only limited to the fat cats around Lake Chad and so on, there might be people who are ill-advising even the commander-in-chief and so on.
Yeah.
So that
Could be.
and that when you eventually look at the scenario when we say we would like to have certain amount of money in order to buy arms, and you suddenly hear eyebrows and noise about why should you give it to the military, simply because the war is not at their own doorsteps and so on. This is the kind of people who will,
is a business.
Yes, who will, war is a business, a big business.
Yeah.
And if this war reaches their own doorstep, they will know. They will know the difference. And Nigeria as a country is just like a body. We always said, if your fingernail is you have pain in your finger and so on, the entire body is affected. And therefore I said, open the doors for negotiation with Boko Haram. Don't allow these runaway insurgents from Syria, Mali, and so on, because they have lost the territories, because America is no longer interested. Britain has its own problem. France has their own problem and so on. They will no longer protect them, and therefore for them the only way is to overrun a base, a military base, take away the arms, and then kidnap certain people, and then expect government to get money and so on. Yeah. It is business, and therefore, if not for the group, the police group, the Inspector General's special team led by DCP Abba Kyari, of arresting most of them along Zampara, Birnin Gwari, and even in Maiduguri and so on. By now that we are close to elections, you will have had a lot of bombings in different places in the north. Yeah. That is their own trend in Afghanistan, but Somalia, all over.
At least
they hate elections.
At least, but it's a bad thing to say.
Yes,
at least it's been
this is something well done, and this Abba Kyari's group of police, all these professionals, they have really saved a lot of lives, and they deserve a lot of commendation. And I think, and I will always repeatedly say, Mr. President, in his capacity of the commander-in-chief, should think out of the box, shouldn't limit himself to the reports from this the service chiefs, advisors, and so on. From
Find
time
a way
to time,
have independence.
Exactly, independence, have pieces of information from the lower cadre and middle and so on, from recruits and so on. From time to time, as a soldier, I think even a civilian and so on, from time to time, you should be able to be at the war front to encourage them, one, and then to have a tete-a-tete with some few soldiers and troops and so on, ask them about their real problems. Is it welfare, equipment, and so on? Yeah. Because this thing ought to have ended within 3 months. But now, almost 10 years now.
10 years.
Because it's like you said, it's a big business, and people are suffering. And international community based in America, Britain, and France are saying these things, the real enemy is within because they no longer support anything, because I say the conspiracy and so on is no longer working. They are not conspiring for now.
Prof,
thank you very much.
We've more than reached our time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Time is once again against us, and I thank my guest. I thank our cameramen. I thank the crew in the control room and the Liberty Global Reports production team. Thank you to my special guest, Professor Dikwa.
Thank you.
And this is Arthur Brooks signing out. Join me again next Wednesday. Have a great week. Keep watching Global Reports and Liberty Television.
It's not just about the individual news item, it's all about what's behind the news story. What went on before, now, and after.
We report today not from Kaduna, Nigeria, but from Liverpool in the United Kingdom. Slavery Museum, that's right, in Liverpool. Dr. Benjamin.
No personal attack on candidates.
Okay, thank you very much. ATV Liverpool. I'm here with Chris Kerr, who is one of the team that runs this remarkable little station.
My background is that I'd spent quite a lot of time working for Bernardo Television as a reporter and producer, and I had lived in Liverpool for most of my life, and I've had a very strong interest in doing something in the way of more local television, more than the regional service which Bernardo and the BBC offer.
This is Arthur Brooks signing off from Liberty Global Reports, and have a very good week. Thank you, Saidu, for coming on the programme.
My pleasure.
And please check out our Facebook page.